This was such an intense, brutal event. It wasn't allowed even in the darkest entertainment districts of ancient Rome. However, that occurred every night to kids as young as 10 in the Hippodrome in Constantinople. Learn how 30,000 people were killed and how systematic child abuse produced the most dangerous woman in history. Leader and the Swan was the name of the practice. Wild-trained animals did feats that would terrify listeners. In the present era, a nude youngster would lie on stage. 80,000 people clapped as a young girl's body was showered with pennies. This was more than just amusement. It was industrial trafficking that was legalized. This nightmare is being endured by the 10-year-old. She would rise to become the Roman Empire's most powerful female official. Theodora was her name. The death of her father, the Baykeeper, marked the beginning of everything. This is how monsters created by childhood trauma alter history. When Theodora's father died in 504 CE, it triggered the most systematic child trafficking in ancient history. But to understand how one man's death could destroy an entire family, you need to know about the Byzantine political system that controlled everything. Constantinople was divided by two massive political factions, the Blues and Greens. These weren't just sports teams, they were political parties controlling jobs, entertainment, and government positions. Every citizen belonged to one faction, and that allegiance determined your entire life. Acacius, Theodora's father, held a crucial position as the Green faction's official Baykeeper, training massive brown bears for hippodrome combat before 80,000 screaming spectators. When he died suddenly, his family should have automatically inherited protection and employment. That's the rule. That's how the system works. But here's where everything goes catastrophically wrong. Asterius, the Greens' dancing master, who controlled entertainment jobs, accepted a bribe. Instead of protecting Acacius's widow and 3 daughters, he gave the Baykeeper position to another man entirely. With one corrupt decision, he condemned 3 little girls to the most sophisticated child trafficking network in the ancient world. Theodora's mother faced an impossible choice: watch her daughters starve or feed them to the brutal system that kept Constantinople's entertainment industry profitable. She chose survival, but the price was unthinkable. In a scene of calculated humiliation, she dressed her 3 little girls as suppliants with laurel wreaths and paraded them before 80,000 spectators in the Hippodrome arena. She was essentially advertising them for intimate services, begging the crowd to take pity on these children now available for the entertainment industry's darkest purposes. The Greens, who caused this crisis through corruption, turned their backs completely. Cold, brutal, final, but the Blues faction took pity and gave work to the stepfather. This single moment sealed Theodora's fate and programmed her for revenge on a scale nobody could imagine. She would never forget who abandoned her family to human trafficking and who showed mercy. By age 10, Theodora was performing the most degrading acts imaginable. The Leader and the Swan became her specialty, lying completely naked on stage, while trained geese picked barley seeds from her body as thousands of men cheered and threw coins at a child's naked flesh. Yet this theatrical perversion was just foreplay for what came after the show. The real horror happened in the back rooms of the Hippodrome, where children as young as 8 were expected to provide intimate services to senators, merchants, and wealthy citizens. Byzantine law explicitly stated that actresses and performers were equivalent to prostitutes, meaning physical submission wasn't just expected, it was legally mandated. But Theodora wasn't just surviving this systematic abuse, she was analyzing it. While other children broke under the psychological torture, she was studying the power dynamics. Each night revealed how powerful senators lost control and dignity over a child's body. She observed wealthy merchants becoming pathetic and desperate for their preferred entertainment. Every performance became a masterclass in human weakness, intimate psychology, and the dark mechanics of desire. At 16, Theodora became the Hippodrome's most requested performer, not just for her body, but for her intelligence. The same senators and merchants who threw coins at her naked 10-year-old body now paid premium prices for private sessions. They thought they were buying a prostitute. They had no idea they were creating their own executioner. Then came the opportunity that would transform her from victim into predator. Hesiolus, the Syrian governor of Libya, visited Constantinople seeking entertainment. He He was one of Rome's most powerful provincial governors, controlling vast wealth and military forces. When he saw Theodora perform, he didn't just want her for a night, he wanted to own her completely. The offer was unprecedented. Become his personal concubine, live in luxury, escape the hippodrome's trafficking forever. For nearly 4 years in Libya, Theodora lived in Hesilus's palace. But she wasn't just enjoying luxury, she was receiving her graduate education in intimate manipulation. This is where she discovered that the barbaric practices she endured as a child could be weaponized against the men who thought they were in control. Hesilus believed he owned her body, but Theodora analyzed how his carnal obsessions made him weak. Experience taught her which desires shamed him, which fantasies he would pay anything to fulfill, which physical practices made him lose his political judgment. Every intimate moment became a lesson in psychological warfare. Then she made a crucial mistake. Theodora began using her intimate knowledge to manipulate his political decisions. When Hesilus realized that his provincial policies were being influenced by his concubine's physical manipulation, he exploded with rage and threw her out with nothing. After 4 years of luxury, she was thrown back into trafficking. However, this betrayal became her most valuable education. The journey back to Constantinople transformed her into the deadliest intimate predator in history. Ship by ship across the Mediterranean, she sold her body to survive, but now she was applying everything learned from Hesilus. She systematically destroyed every man who thought he was using her, building a mental database of how carnal desire made powerful men vulnerable, stupid, and ultimately destroyable. In 522 CE, when 40-year-old Prince Justinian first saw Theodora at an elite court gathering, he thought he was looking at just another beautiful former performer. He had no idea he was staring at a woman who had spent 16 years mastering how to destroy powerful men through intimate warfare, perfected through years of barbaric practice. The seduction began immediately, but this wasn't ordinary attraction, this was psychological manipulation on the highest level. Theodora employed every technique learned from her exploitation, studying Justinian's carnal preferences with the same cold analysis once applied to hippodrome clients. She discovered his weakness for intelligent conversation during private moments, his need for emotional connection, the same vulnerabilities that made Hesilus physically dependent. When Justinian announced his intention to marry her, the court exploded in scandal. Ancient laws forbade senators from marrying actresses, but the real obstacle was Empress Euphemia, who recognized exactly what Theodora represented: intimate manipulation, weaponized for political conquest. Then, on a cold night in 523 CE, Empress Euphemia died mysteriously in her sleep. No warning signs, no illness, no witnesses, just sudden death that removed the only person capable of stopping Theodora's intimate conquest of the empire. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Within hours, Emperor Justin began drafting new legislation specifically crafted to allow Theodora's marriage. In 525 CE, at Hagia Sophia, the wedding ceremony represented the ultimate triumph of intimate manipulation over political power. The same woman who once performed naked for coins now wore imperial purple silk, but the performance skills remained identical. This wasn't just a wedding, it was the coronation of systematic exploitation. 7 years after weaponizing her exploitation into imperial power, the empress faced the ultimate test. The Nika Revolt of January 532 CE wasn't just political rebellion, it was a direct attack on everything she represented. For the first time in Byzantine history, the blues and greens united under one battle cry against the former prostitute who manipulated her way to imperial power. As Constantinople burned and advisors begged Justinian to flee, Theodora rose from her chair in the emergency council meeting. "My opinion is that the present time above all others is not the right moment for flight." Her voice cut through the panic like a blade. "May I never be separated from this purple. As for myself, I approve a certain ancient saying, royalty is a good burial shroud." This wasn't just political defiance, this was revenge on the ultimate scale. The crowd wanting to kill her represented every man who ever paid to abuse her body. Justinian, still physically obsessed after 7 years of manipulation, chose massacre over abandoning his empress. During the rebels' victory celebration, 100,000 people packed into the hippodrome believing they were witnessing a new empire's birth. Instead, they walked into the ultimate revenge fantasy. Imperial soldiers blocked every exit and moved through the crowd with methodical precision. The screams echoed off stone walls as families were butchered where they stood. By day's end, over 30,000 corpses littered the arena floor where barbaric practices once entertained the masses. From her imperial chambers, Theodora operated a parallel government, an intelligence network gathering the most dangerous secrets about senators' shameful preferences. She instituted protocols forcing everyone to prostrate and kiss both her and Justinian's feet, reversing the humiliation dynamic she experienced as a child. Her assassination campaigns revealed predatory mastery. Pope Silverius died in exile after fabricated treason charges. Queen Amalasuntha was murdered while bathing. John the Cappadocian endured months of psychological warfare until his mind broke completely. Her legal revolution served ultimate revenge while maintaining control. Anti-prostitution laws prohibited the exploitation she survived, while establishing convents that controlled other women's physicality. Marriage and criminal justice reforms made rape punishable by death, legal codification of revenge by someone who understood intimate violence deeply. When Theodora died in 548 CE at 48, Justinian fell into complete psychological collapse, never remarried, and ruled ineffectively for 17 more years. The man she controlled for decades couldn't function without her. From exploited child to the most powerful woman in history, Theodora proved that barbaric practices don't just destroy victims, they can create destroyers. Her story reveals how childhood trauma shapes history, transforming victimhood into predation, but was manipulating an entire empire worth 30,000 lives.